Perfect. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. We know that there are folks trickling in. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us today. We have worked really closely with the Mexican consulate for now decades. I am proud to say that I have been adopted by many of them. They once upon a time didn't even know that I was not Mexican, didn't know that I was from Ecuador. But I just feel so grateful to the Mexican consulate, to my great friend, the ambassador who has been for years leading in Chicago. And prior to that, I got to meet her when she was doing incredible work in Mexico itself. And in 2014, I had the privilege of being one of 40 DACA dreamers that got to go to Mexico and experience, right, Mexico and its greatness as a DACA recipient on advanced parole. And the reason why we wanted to bring all of you together and bring them here is because there's a lot of information, a lot of resources, rights that are really critical for all of you to know, and know that there's a network of consular offices all over the country. They are the strongest in the from all nations, right? That they have the most amount of people, and they're work that they have done to support Mexican nationals has been just awe-inspiring. And again, I just feel super grateful that they're here today. So I think we're recording this, so just want to make sure that people know that. Two, that this information is available, on the consular websites and etc. And what we're going to do today is we're going to have the ambassador share some of the resources, the work that they're doing, what's available to Mexican nationals, to our scholars who are Mexican, their families, right? And we know information is power. We know that we cannot be panicked at this time, that there's a lot of stuff that are happening, but that if we inform ourselves, if we have a plan, that will ease a little bit our anxiety and the stress that we're feeling with everything that is happening. And we also know that they have great resources like the Becas. How many of you probably don't even know what that is, right? And they have the attorneys, right, that they have hired. And one of the attorneys is going to be here with us and is going to be answering questions. So we're going to hand it over to them in a little bit. I just want to make sure that we're all settled in. And it looks like we have critical mass. So once again, this is being recorded. We're recording it to be able to share with our community scholars that unfortunately are there in class or working and couldn't make it. But we know that this information is really critical. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you the incredible, the just smart and strategic and caring ambassador to Mexico that has been leading the Chicago area. I love our Miami one too, but can we just like clone you and have you everywhere? Reina, thank you so much for being part of this, of collaborating with us in December to be able to take some of our Dream.Us alumni to Mexico for an advanced borough research education trip, and for everything that you do to ensure that not just Mexican dreamers, but others also are able to have resources and support. So I'll turn it over to you now for you to share the information around all the incredible things that the Mexican consulate and embassies are doing.
Thank you so much, Gabby. I really appreciate the words, and everybody can tell that we're good friends because you had such kind words about my work and what we do here at the consulate. Of course, we're really happy to get this opportunity to talk to some of your alumni and close members or participants in the programs that Dream.Us puts out there. You are doing a fantastic job, and I really value this. I am really delighted to be here in this Zoom call with one of our closest collaborators, Jesus Ruiz Velasco, who is one of the attorneys that works with us in the pilot program, el programa de asistencia legal. Of course, I am here with some of my colleagues at the consulate, Gerardo Guerrero, and he has his name wrong. He says it says Tania Andrade, but no, he's not called Tania. He's called Gerardo. But also some other members of our staff. Saul should be somewhere, and Esmeralda as well. Some other members of the protection department. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be very brief. Gabby, I sent to you one image that I would love if you could share with all the participants. But what I'm gonna say is that we've been preparing for what's happening right now for quite a while. Um, I'm pretty sure some of you may be Mexican, some of you may not be Mexican, but I guess this information is going to be useful for everyone. Some of the numbers or the telephone numbers that I'm going to put out there are for Mexican resources, but as I said, the information is useful for everybody. We have new resources, and we will talk a little bit about those. One of them is called Consulap, and it's an application that is for iOS. And this is the image. Thank you, Gabby. You will find here in two very important telephone numbers and QR codes. The first one is for those Mexican citizens that are looking to get their passports, their consular IDs, birth certificates, and that is very important right now. It's like the first step of what you need to do to be prepared for what could happen, right? And the other one is the emergency telephone number for the protection department in Chicago, which can be useful for some of you, maybe not all of you, but this other number, the one that is called CIAM, Centro de Información y Asistencia a Personas Mexicanas, that is a protection national number. It's a number of a call center that is in our operates from our consulate in Tucson, and you can see and you can look for resources from all over the country. They will tell you, your closest consulate is this one. This is the address, this is the number for that particular protection department. So you can call them and ask for whatever information you need on that case. The other thing is that we've been talking a lot in workshops and know your rights seminars and all that about what's going on, what's happening. And I think that the most concerning thing, well, many things are, of course, of concern, but what you have seen, I'm pretty sure that you will see, you have seen that in the media, is the emphasis that has been paid to creating fear, right? To trying to make people or figuring out how to make people go back to the countries on their own. And there are many pieces out there in news and in the media of neighborhoods like La Villita. For those who are from this area can see how the streets are empty in La Villita, or we have seen here at the consulate how not everybody that has an appointment shows up for the appointment. And that speaks a lot of the mood of the community. Well, let me tell you, the first thing that I want to tell you is the value that you have as a dreamer, as an immigrant family, as a head or a member of an immigrant family. Nobody should take that away from you guys. That's very important. Second, information is power. It's, you know that already, and you know how important this is. Information is power, and information is the best antidote to fear. So the more you know, the better prepared you are. And the other thing is that our family units are very complex. It's not that, you have perhaps a DACA status, but maybe your brother or your sister do not have that, and you may have a sister that is a citizen because he or she was already born here, but maybe grandma and grandpa are not citizens. So that complexity means that when there's a threat to one of them, everybody feels the same anxiety and the same frustration. So this information may be useful for you in particular as a dreamer, if you have DACA status or not, or maybe useful for some of your parents or your sister or your brother. So just make sure that you share this. And there was a QR code in the image that Gabby shared in your screen a bit ago. And there is basically the same information that we are passing to our community constantly. And it's pretty much the same information that you will find in your closest consulate. If you go and you decide to show up and look for information, if you move is this one, the one with the yellow square, all the flyers that we distribute every day here at the consulate are there. If you need it bigger, this is it. So if you use that QR code, you will find inside the information package with many useful things. And let me tell you the one that is particularly useful. This little flyer here lists all the things that you should be aware or make aware one of your relatives that you need to be prepared for anything. What do I need? I'm going to sit with my family and discuss with them. You know what? Let's put together in a place that we all know, in a safe place, my birth certificate, my passport, my consular IDs, information regarding medical needs. For example, if I know that somebody in my family may require medical attention, if they are minors, how to take care of minors, and all that is going to be important at some point and in case of emergency. That is very important to do. And as I mentioned everywhere, some people may know or may not know if they have a final deportation order. In this particular moment, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow because you know that this is changing every day. But for what we have seen so far, in the kind of operations that we have seen here in the Midwest and what I've heard from my colleagues in other parts of the country, um, they certainly have been targeting what they call the what was that, Gerardo? I forgot. It was high level targets or high risk targets. I think that's the term that they use, high risk targets. And what they meant by this is persons that have final deportation orders or criminal records. And that part of the criminal records may mean many things, right? It could mean that is somebody with, a DUI. We saw a case of one of our citizens that was being deported because he had a record of shoplifting, or they are what is called collateral. We have to be very careful because that particular issue of the collaterals is what is really painful. Somehow some people may be aware that they have one of these records or not. That's why it's very important to have your immigration assessments by an authorized attorney. In this case, as I said, we have here with us el abogado Ruiz Velasco, who will be happy to answer some of your questions. And I'm going to pass the microphone to you, Jesus, in a bit. But let me just finish in saying something. There is a large amount of resources that we have put out there to make sure that you can approach the consulates and you and your families may feel that you are not alone. This is the other flyer that I mentioned, this one, Prepárate ante cualquier emergencia. These are the documents that need to be out there that you need to discuss with your families, with your relatives. And if the first thing that you need to do is to go to your consulate to make sure that you have your passport and your consular IDs, that's a good thing. If perhaps your little sister or brother have not been registered as Mexicans, that's another thing that you need to do, and you need to alert your parents to do soon. So this is the materials in general, what is in your screen right now, that you're going to find in this QR code. All of that is useful information. Just make sure that you give yourself some time to go through it. And if you have any questions, you can call the CIAM. That's the number, the national number that I mentioned, and they will figure out where you are, where you're located. Or you can download the app. It's called Consul app. And what this application does is that you can register your closest relatives there or your closest contacts. And in case of an emergency, you can activate the application and they are going to be alerted. For example, if I know that I have a final deportation order and I find myself, with apprehended by an immigration authority, I can activate the application, and immediately my relatives or my friends or somebody they have put into the application are going to be alerted that I'm, going through this. And for that time, they will know what to do because we have The ideal thing is that we have discussed this previously. As I said, you need to pay closer attention when there are minors involved, to make sure that you know what's going to happen with them, how that is going to be handled, and all that. So the idea that I want to convey to you today is that the consular network is out there. We have been instructed to be useful to you, to make sure that if we cannot resolve particular issues that may need a specialist like the attorneys, we have already established that network of contacts to make sure that we can refer you to a specialist. And the last thing, before I ask the abogado Ruiz Velasco to perhaps give you some pointers about what we are going through, is that this is a very complex time, and many people are unfortunately trying to take advantage of this situation. So be aware of fraud and scam by people without scruples that may be out there trying to profit from this. So be aware of many notarios that may say, just give me this amount of money and I will fix the papers, te arreglo los papeles o arreglo los de tu papá, and that may not be the case. And as you know, a form that is not properly filled can damage your case in the future. So be aware of those. And also, all the appointments at the consulate are free. Do not fall with the coyotes and enganchadores they are out there in social media trying to make appointments and charge you for the appointments at the consulates. That's a free service. Abogado, quisieras, Ruiz Velasco, would you like to say perhaps a few words to the participants in this Zoom?
Yes, well, I'm very happy to be here. And like the ambassador Reina said, it's important that we keep calm. I think that's the most important factor right now that I've been telling a lot of people. Everybody's in a panic mode, and I understand why. The news and what the administration is saying is worthy of panic, but it's important to keep calm, to be informed, as the ambassador said, to really know your rights, and to use the resources that are available. So I know in Chicago there's a lot of organization, and that's been very well documented. In other places, not so much. So people are very afraid of going to school or going to outside, and it shouldn't. That's not what That's not correct. So the laws have not changed. um, there's some enforcement that strategies or policies that are taking place, but the laws are still the same. People continue to have the same rights to go before a judge, to speak with their consulate. Doesn't matter what country you're from. Well, for the most part, as long as there's diplomatic relationships, um, and and um, and to speak to an attorney. Now, of course, if you have orders of removal entered by a judge in the past, that can very much affect your ability to see a judge or to fight your removal. If you have certain very serious felonies, that can also affect your ability. But you should definitely be informed. And I know the Chicago consulate has set up appointments for people to speak to attorneys. If you have been involved in any kind of immigration case in the past, it's important that you speak to a trusted attorney, to see where you stand and what options you may have in case you do encounter uh, the authorities in any which way, um, so that you know where you stand and what options you may have, and what you need to prepare in case you are apprehended. But in the meantime, do not panic, um, and just inform yourself and make use of all of these resources. And I'm happy to answer any more direct questions, and that's really why what I can do in this venue today.
Thank
Gracias, Jesús. Gaby, would you like to start answering some questions, perhaps?
Yes, yeah. So one of the questions that I keep getting people who are asking is, what do you do, right, if immigration comes to your house and they knock on the door and they're looking for you and they say, oh, here's the paper that we're looking for you. How do people differentiate and know, right, if that paper is a real like warrant or not? Like what is it that people need to know about that?
So, what I usually tell people is I've never seen ICE have an actual warrant. They have their own, they produce their own documents. They may have your name on there because they are looking maybe for you, but these are arrest orders from ICE to be used by ICE. So the first thing I would tell people is you do not have to, well, do not open the door, because opening the door is the same thing as letting them in. And once you open the door, they can make the argument that you consented to them entering your property. So you should always ask for a warrant, a judicial warrant, and without opening the door. Again, they can either slide it under the door or put it up to the window if there's any glass window. But the way you'll know that it's an actual judicial warrant is it will have a judge's signature, not an ICE officer, but it has to be signed by a judge. And usually warrants also have very specific information as to the scope or what they're able to why they're able to enter a property, what they're allowed to look for, and the warrants are usually very specific in nature. So, and it'll say warrant. And it'll be signed by a judge. Those are the two things. If it does not say warrant and it's not signed by an actual judge, then I would advise that you do not have to open the door or answer any questions. Um, and let them know that without that, you're exercising your right to not answer questions, to not open the door. You're not giving consent for them to enter. Because again, if they are, even if they're not looking for you in particular, once you let them in, if they encounter any other person in that area that does not have the ability to show that they're here with permission, they'll arrest you. They'll arrest anybody. They call it collateral damage, and they'll take anyone that they run into. They don't have to justify it. So, again, if it's not a warrant that's signed by a judge, and it has to be very specific, you don't have to answer questions or open the door even.
Thank you. Thank
And
you
if
for
I might, Gabby, just a word on what the abogado Velasco, Ruiz Velasco just said. And remember that circumstances are different according to the state. Here in the state of Illinois is completely different to the situation that some of you guys may be going through in Texas or in other states. So since here local law enforcement authorities do not collaborate with immigration authorities, the immigration authorities have actually less information than they may have in other circumstances. And that information is the information, as the abogado said, that they use to, you know, eh, put out there the warrants or not. If they don't have it, usually what's happening here is that they don't have it. They don't have anything to show up when they go to the houses and knock the doors. But their circumstances may be different. And now that in Texas, it has the operation has changed because of this collaboration, that could change. So be aware of that. Follow what's happening in your state, in your locality, because this could change a little bit. And we're gonna put out there in the chat some flyers that some of the organizations here in Illinois have distributed. Some of them with exact language that you should use if somebody knocks at your door. Like I don't want to say anything. I have the right to remain silent. Those kind of things that you need to know and actually need to memorize or have close by the flyer with that information in case you need it.
Great. So this is something that I know has happened in the past, right? And so there's a lot of confusion, and a lot of the times we have to be practical, right? The most important thing is knowing our rights. But for example, people usually carry their matricula or their pasaporte de Mexico, right? And the question's always like, should I carry those things with me? What if I'm driving and I get stopped by the police, right? What are my rights there? Should I say something? Should I tell them about my immigration status, that if I have DACA or I'm undocumented or I have TPS, whatever the situation is, right? Well, for Mexican nationals, not TPS, but DACA or undocumented. What do you suggest, right, for those folks on as far as like what should they say or not say if they're encountering either ICE or police, and should they be carrying documents with them?
Abogado, ¿quieres contestar?
Sure. Well, it's gonna be, it depends on the circumstances, right? If why they're being pulled over. For example, your example of driving. If you're being pulled over, you should probably be able to show that you're either have a license to you're allowed to operate the vehicle, but you always have the right to remain silent, especially when it comes to ICE. If you're being stopped by ICE, if it's on the street, like in a raid or in any kind of circumstance where you come face to face with ICE, you always have the right to remain silent. Was that going to result in you being detained? Yeah, most likely. Most likely they're going to detain you, and then at that point, they're going to take your fingerprints. They're going to run those, and at that point, that's when you have to really request that you want to see a judge, and you want to speak to an attorney, and you want to speak to your consulate. All of those things. That's when they come into play. So you do have a right to not say anything. Again, you're most likely going to be detained if that happens. If it's ICE, they're going to most likely detain you. So you need to be prepared to be detained in those situations. Now, if you have a state ID or a state driver's license, then and you want to identify yourself, that's also okay. Though that doesn't show immigration status, but if you're being stopped for an apparent traffic violation, well, then that's a you should be able to do that, because in a lot of states you will be arrested if you're driving without a license. And unfortunately, a lot of states will not give undocumented people a license or a permit to drive. Some states like Illinois do give you permission to. You can, there is a possibility of having not a driver's license, but some type of a driving authorization by the state. If you present your a consular identification, um, it's going to depend on who you present that to, and what you know. A lot of I know that a lot of authorities don't recognize that as valid identification, unfortunately, against all the international law that exists. So again, you don't have to answer any questions. You're not obligated to. We all have the right to remain silent, and you can tell the whatever authority is questioning you that you're exercising your right to remain silent, and that you would wish to speak with an attorney, and you wish to speak to a judge if it comes down to that. I don't know if the Ambassador Reina has more to add to this, but that would be my advice.
And there are certain specific circumstances that could, work in your favor. For example, of course, all that El Abogado Ruiz Velasco just said, but for example, what if I'm already in the process of getting some immigration relief, or I'm already consulting with an attorney and they have initiated a process, whatever process it is, you should be aware of that and you should say that. It may not stop the detention, but once that you start the process where ICE is processing your fingerprints and everything, you should state that clearly and out loud. I need to talk to my attorney. I have initiated an immigration process. I need to alert my attorney. And that's something they will stop the deportation. We have had a couple of cases in which that has very clearly happened, because if there is the possibility of some room or something happening, because I have already initiated a process, that counts as a cause for stopping the deportation. The other thing is any other, for example, I have a medical condition and I need dialysis, or I am the only caretaker in my family and I have a kid with a disability that is a minor. All those things count in your favor. You should just be able to say that out loud, and alert whatever officer and whatever point in the process to make them aware of this particular circumstance.
And I just also want to ask about when you are in detention, do you have a right to ask to speak to your consulate or consular officer?
Yes, yes, you have the right to speak to your consular officer. And actually, and I know this because we are coordinating with all the 53 consulates in the US, and all my colleagues are visiting detention centers. So we may, of course, we cannot impede or detain, stop a deportation, but we can act in the process to figure out if there is an element that could help in favor or could work in favor of that particular person. We're able to intervene and talk and have this dialogue with immigration authorities. And yes, you have the right to contact your consulate. This is protected by the Vienna Convention, and that's why we are actually one of the few stakeholders that have access to the detention facilities.
And I just want to make a note about this that there are, and we've seen the cases of individuals that ICE, right, will try to force you to sign, for example, your deportation, your voluntary deportation. And there is a place where you check off and say, I refuse to speak to an attorney. I refuse to talk to my consular officer. And people need to be aware of these things, that they have these rights. And you can say, I want to speak to an attorney. I want to be able to speak to my consular office. And while those things might not stop a deportation in the end, and can potentially give room and space, perhaps for an attorney to intervene and say, oh, you might have a case here, let's fight it, right? So it's really important that people understand that their goal is to deport. Your goal is to understand and know your rights, to be able to give yourself and others in your community, including the attorneys, the consulate, an opportunity to fight that, right? So I always tell this to people why, they believe that, oh, know your rights is going to be the thing that saves individuals, and not necessarily. What it does is it arms you with the information and the power to be able to fight for yourself in your case. So we are getting a few questions in the chat, and I'm just going to um, kind of reiterate what we're seeing. And so there are people that right now are in relationships and they're asking about, if they were to get married, has anything changed in the law since the new Trump administration that would make it difficult or not, a thing if somebody was to get married to a US citizen?
No, absolutely. Nothing has changed as far as the laws go with regards to marriage to a U.S. citizen or any kind of family-based immigration. So yes, if you are married to a citizen, there might be a possibility of obtaining your permanent resident. There's a lot of other factors that have to be looked at. How you enter the country, how long you've been here without permission, if you've departed the country. So it's not just automatically if you married a citizen, you can get your residency. But it is an important factor, and it's a very strong factor. And sometimes, even if you can't move forward affirmatively, which means applying for benefits, being married to a citizen can help you in defending against the deportation. So it can help you defensively. There's certain things that a judge might be able to cancel your removal based on your relationship to a U.S. citizen. So um, again, I would recommend that you speak to an attorney directly so that you can find out what your options are. But the laws have not changed, so it can often be a path to your permanent residence, marriage to a citizen,
Right.
or to a permanent resident, even.
Thank you. Um,
Hmm.
Going back to the location, so there's questions around what if you're not at home, let's say you're at work and ICE comes to work, or if you are in a church or a school, um, is it different as far as ICE coming in? I guess it's if it's a
Um,
public space, right? Not
Right, and for any kind of employer as well, or any kind of company or business, ICE would also need a warrant to enter that company, unless they are again given consent to enter. So, for any business, any company. I know that a lot of the school districts have officially said in a lot of places that they were not going to allow ICE to enter, and obviously not going to be sharing any kind of information with ICE or any government agency. So yeah, they need warrants to enter any place, pretty much, unless they're given consent by whoever owns the business or runs the business.
Thank you for that.
If I
So
may
we
just add a little something, after what La Boal said. Um, you know that that directive that used to be like a discretionary element where ICE could not go nearby a school, churches, and hospitals. I talk directly with the ICE officers and the ICE leadership regionally here. They know, they are aware of that, but believe me, they are not willing to violate that, and they are quite aware that they cannot get into a church to apprehend people. I'm not saying that they may be a rogue agent that decides to do that in a place that is um, where this could be easier, like in a state where things are different and this is going to be seen through different lenses. But in some states, some places, or the majority of them, it will be atrocious if they go inside a church or a hospital. They keep repeating that they are targeting people with criminal records, and they are targeting people that have final deportation orders. That information they already have. And that is why, and I cannot stress this enough, that is why it's very important that you go through an immigration assessment, una consulta migratoria, in any of your consulates. We all have attorneys, as Jesus Ruiz Velasco here for Chicago, and they should give you the information you need, either to make that consultation with some of the attorneys at the consulate or with one of our partners or organizations. It is very important for each of us to be aware whether the particular circumstances of each of our cases, and most importantly, what if I have an alternative for immigration relief and I'm not aware of that. So far, before they change the laws, it's important for me to know precisely that. If you need to renew your DACA, do it like right now. I cannot, again, stress that enough. If you need to renew your DACA, do it right now.
Thank you. And so, Reina, we're getting some questions from folks around the country, New York, Atlanta, other places where they're not able to, for example, find an appointment. What would you say are some strategies to ensure that, we know there are 40 million Mexican nationals in the United States. And so, and you are the biggest network, right, with 53 consulates. How can people specifically be able to get an appointment if they want to talk to an attorney or if they want to do a passport? Like, what do you think, what would you say are the strategies for folks to be able to get those appointments? Where should they go? Reina, where you're still on mute, sorry.
I apologize. Let me explain to you exactly what's happening right now and why this is something that we are sharing this frustration with the entire consular network. There is a call center in Mexico City that has been hired. There is a contract that we have with these persons. It's not in Mexico City, actually. It's somewhere nearby Mexico City. And these persons are those doing the appointments. This has nothing to do with the CIAM, con el Centro de Información y Asistencia a Personas Mexicanas. That's different. Those are very well prepared, very well trained professionals that are there to help in cases for protection. This is just to make the appointments for regular services at the consulate. And it's really frustrating because we changed, and some of you, I know that you all are very young, but some of you may remember when we had, what was it called? Mexitel. That was the previous one. That was a disaster, so they decided to change it, and turns out that they just changed the name, but it's also we're facing a very inefficient service. So what we have done, many consuls, we have done to compensate for that, because it's almost a nightmare to get an appointment there, is to provide alternatives. So each consulate has an alternative. So my best advice is follow the social media of your consulates. For example, here for Chicago, I'm going to put it in the chat. an email address where you can send us your name and your telephone number, and the staff of the consulate in Chicago will reach out to you to make sure that you can make that appointment. And we received, I'm not kidding, hundreds of emails of people saying, you know, I'm frustrated. I've been struggling with the mi consulado for a week or for a couple of weeks, and I haven't been able to make an appointment. So follow, as I said, the social media of the different consulates. I know that my colleague in LA, for example, accepts walk-ins and at certain days, or you know, they have other alternatives according to the different characteristics of each consulate. So it is important that you have some alternative and that you have this information. And the only way to have it is to follow your closest consulate to make sure that you know how to make this appointment. As I said, I'm going to put the address in the chat, and please be patient. And if you are really in a hurry and if you are really stressed, just check the time where the consulate is open and just show up there. If you feel that you're being threatened or you are in an emergency, you can always show up at the consulate and ask for the protection department, and they will direct you. You know, if you need an identification or something, they will refer you to the documentation department so you can get your documents.
Persistence is going to be key in this, right? Practicing our rights, understanding our rights, ensuring that we're preparing and working with our families, that it's not just us that has that information, but our community and the people we live with is going to be really critical. And so, Jesus, I know that a lot of people are just really anxious about what this administration's doing, what the future holds. We have a lot of DACA recipients, and those that applied for DACA and didn't get to have their DACA adjudicated. What do you think is the next steps for DACA, knowing that, you know, it's in litigation, knowing that there's 100,000 applications that are on hold? What do you think is the best guess? And what should people be doing? Like Reina, you know, la embajadora just said, we need to make sure that people are renewing their DACA. There's tons of resources out there to get those funds, including acercándose and going to the consulates for support with that. So it's a two-part question is what do you think it's happening there and what should people be doing to prepare?
I think it's important that everyone that is eligible to renew their DACA definitely do so. I wish I had an idea of what the future holds, but you know, I have no idea. It's so unpredictable. Um, but I wouldn't imagine with the current administration and their control of the Senate and the courts, and I mean I wouldn't imagine anything positive coming, even though I'm always hopeful that something good can come out of everything. In the meantime, I would definitely advise people the same as Ambassador Reina. If you're eligible to renew, not just DACA, but any benefit, renew it now. Get it started. Don't wait. If you've been waiting to apply for any other type of benefit or relief, any kind of petition through a family, if you have been holding off on that to see what happens in the future, I would advise you not to wait. If you're eligible for any kind of benefit, any kind of petition, you should definitely get that going because we don't know what the future holds. If anything does change, it could change. It's a process. It would have to change. The laws would have to change. I know there's a lot of executive orders, but they could also change the law if Congress gets their act together. And we shouldn't wait for that to happen. We should apply for whatever you're eligible today, and then if something changes, then you know deal with that when it does change. But definitely prepare for everything is my best advice.
Thank you, Jesus. And I do want to say that one of the things that has always worked with anybody for me is not going at people with anger, right? And putting your frustration on people. And so You have individuals who are here ready to prepare to support and help you. Everybody is right now, there's a saying that says we're drinking off of a hose, right? I have not stopped for the last couple of weeks, even into November, right after we learned that we were having a new administration and trying to do as best as we can for our community. But reality is that we're all just all people too that have so much trying to do everything. And so I think back to what the ambassador is saying, right? We need to have patience. We have to treat people kindly. We have to be persistent and try to figure out how we can get, some of these resources and supports. And they're there, right? How many of you, I just want to ask a quick poll, raise your hand if you have gone to the consulate office and read through all the different things that are available for you. How many of you know about the resources, the app, the Imebecas, right? The support that they're doing with the protección, right? Probably not a lot of you, right? So how many of you are right now following your consulate on Instagram, on Facebook, right? And are informing yourself. So those are the things that we have to do, right? To do this, and we're providing all of this for you. And again, information is power, planning is power. We're going to be here for every single one of you. We have 10 more minutes to go, so I just want to make sure that we bring it back to what other resources, what should people be thinking about as we are in this time, right, of uncertainty, of a lot of anxiety, but also I'm seeing the unity and I'm seeing the beauty of our community coming together. I'm hearing, right, the border SARS complaining on TV saying, oh, those folks in Chicago, they're really well educated. They know their rights, and it's making it a lot hard for us to be able to carry on our deportation. So that also shows the power of community and the power of knowledge. That no nos vamos a quedar with our hands, like this, that we're going to exercise our God-given rights that we have, right? And that this country also has rights, and anybody, right? There's human rights that we have to abide by. So, Reina, I'm gonna pass it over to you to see, what else should people know? What else should people hear from you?
As I said at the beginning, we, the consulates, have been trying to put out their strategy to work with you the entire process from the very beginning. That is something, very perhaps simple, if you say, to have a document for identification. If you are finding trouble, once again, I've answered some of the questions that you have put in the chat. If you show up in a consulate and ask for protection, they are obligated to hear you. uh, you know that there is also an alternative. If you need a passport, there are emergency passports. So there are some, ways in which you can navigate this. Ultimately, if you need to figure out what my particular consulate is doing to make sure that they are addressing the needs of the community that they cover, stay in close contact, follow them in social media, ask them in social media. I've been struggling with the application Mi Consulado to make an appointment. Please let me know, what can I do? I'm unable to get an appointment. I put in the chat the email that we use here at the consulate in Chicago to process all those persons that are frustrated with the platform of Mi Consulado for appointments. And the other thing that I want to say is that, of course, is the documents, is the immigration consultations with professionals, with attorneys, what to do in case of emergency, what from the app, Mi Consul app, or what should I put in the door? Yeah, we have shared with you, and I just sent you, Gabby, a couple of other flyers that have specifically, something actually that you can put on your door if ICE is knocking at your door. But the other thing is, what if there is nothing else I can do, and I find myself repatriated to Mexico? Well, also the Mexican government have been working really hard in putting together a specific plan for those Mexicans in return, los mexicanos en retorno. And the president has mentioned repeatedly that at the border there is a plan. That's the one that I was referring a few minutes ago. There is a plan to receive you, whether it's in an airport or at the border. And from, they have in this strategy put together shelters where you will receive information, where there is a bolsa de trabajo, perhaps offers, where there is information on universities. You know that the UNAM, for example, is open for anybody. I mean, you just have to go through the process and enroll in a university. They have a partner with many companies and the business community to make sure that there are jobs available for people that are returning to Mexico. But also, there is a bank card, like an ATM card, that you can use, and they will put some money there so you can move around for the first few days while you figure out what to do, or to buy a bus ticket and go back to the community where your relatives are. Before that, here at the consulate, as I mentioned, or the different consulates should advise you on what to do with, if I have a property perhaps here in the US, how should I handle that? How should I handle minors if in case I have kids? Perhaps el abogado puede decir un poco más about, the kids, those letters that, people can sign before with a notary to make sure that they express what to do, and perhaps my cousin can get the kids here while I settle down in Mexico, and then I'll have somebody to take the kids back with me in Mexico. So there are different circumstances, if there are different solutions. If you find yourself going back to Mexico, the current president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, has said that we are waiting for you, that you will not be a foreigner in your country, that you are welcome as a Mexican to go back to your roots.
Thank you.
Abogado, ¿quisieras comentar algo de los menores de edad? De los niños.
So yeah, there's an option, and I don't want to get too deep into this because it's not my field. I only deal with immigration, but you can do a power of attorney or certain directives that you can officially get. You know, you can execute these documents. So basically, directions on how to handle not just your minor children, but also assets and properties or accounts. Um, there's definitely you should definitely get legal advice on how to do these correctly, first of all, and whether you actually need to do these. A lot of people are going into panic mode, which I think is important to know also. And there's a lot of lawyers and notaries out there trying to scare people into doing these poderes or powers. And I don't think it's necessary in most cases because you're not gonna just wake up in in another country. That's not how the process works, and that's how they're scaring people into paying for these powers that are or these poderes that are often not required. But if you do want to be more proactive and do these, you should definitely talk to an attorney that has experience in this field, as far as family planning or trusts or things of that nature. It's always important to know that you have those options as well.
So this hour went by so quickly, but I just feel so grateful again that we're able to do this. We're able to come and provide this information. We have people from all over the country. We have partners. We shared this broadly with information. I think I even saw somebody who's a reporter, a radio host in there. So I just want to say that we started this with saying how important information is. We started with both the ambassador and the attorney talking about how this is what they want, right? There is a desire to create fear because fear paralyzes people. Fear doesn't let us think straight. And one of the things that a couple of months ago when I was in Chicago, or a couple of weeks ago when I was in Chicago, we talked about is that it also hurts not just your mental health, but your whole entire body. And we cannot allow for all these things to do that. And so I agree, with El Abogado Jesus that this is real, and the pain and the suffering and the fear that is happening, they're doing a lot of stuff that even goes right against uh, basic human rights. But here's what we want everyone to hear and know is that one, you're not alone, right? We're going to enfrentar all of this together as a community. Reality is that it's more of us who are together in this and people who are supporting and standing with us than those who are, trying to hurt us and be against us. But the most important thing that every single one of us can do is use our voice to learn about our rights, use our voice to stand up for others, and use our voice to ensure that, our families, our community, know that we're standing together and we're not alone. So I just want to say thank you to the ambassador, her whole entire team, Saul, I know that I saw there, let's see, who else? Gerardo, and all the team, right, that she works with, but also all the other consulates, the one in Miami. I heard, yes, the New York one. I don't know if Embajador, if they have a consulate general embajador right now. They're still working on it, but Los Angeles, Phoenix, there are 53, more than any other country in the United States. Other foreign countries has this number of consulates. So, the Mexican community is strong. We're looking at you all to, continue to pave the way for all other immigrants in this country. And we're grateful again that you offered to provide this information. Go look for it, go follow them, be persistent, but also be nice about certain things, right? I do see people being angry, like, oh, they're not, paying attention to me. But those things happen. We have to be persistent, and more than anything, we have to stand together and know that we have rights. So we hope this information was helpful to you all. We're going to continue to bring more information, share with you more stuff. This is being recorded, so for people that didn't get to watch it, and if you have to watch it again, you can do so. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope again that this information was fruitful, was informative, and thank you to El Abogado Jesus and to our incredible ambassador of Mexico in Chicago, Reina Torres. Thank you so much.
Gracias,
Have
Gabby.
a good
And if I may just say something, I remember many years ago when we started working with Dreamers, and you guys are amazing. You open everybody's eyes, you open everybody's hearts, and you're strong and you are resilient. And I guess that you bring strength to our community. So I really want to share this with you. We value a lot. We consider you our partners, and we're here to help you. As Gabby said, you are not alone. No están solas, ni están solos. We are here to help you. And just make sure that you are well informed, that you consult with the proper persons and organizations to have information. And the more you know, the best, the more information that you have, you are more powerful. Unidos, informados, somos más fuertes, ¿no? I just want to, leave you with that.
Thank you. Bye. Buenas noches.
Bye
Good
bye,
night.
gracias.